Welcome to the Adventures in CRE audio series. Join Michael Belasco and Spencer Burton as they pull back the curtain on everything commercial real estate and introduce you to some of the top minds in the industry. If you want to take your skills to the next level and be part of a growing community of CRE professionals across the world, this is for you.
All right, welcome back to the Adventures in CRE audio series. I'm your host, Sam Carlson. We're really excited for you guys to be back here today. We've got Spencer Burton and Michael Belasco, along with a special guest. We've got Jim Spaeth here today. He is the Executive Director at the Lenard W Wood Center for Real Estate Studies at UNC, the Keenan Flagler Business School in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Jim, thank you so much for being here today.
Good to be here, Sam. Appreciate it, and big fan of the series here.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into it, in fact, and really kind of introduce us to today's topic and kind of jump right into this. Again, we're excited.
Great. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, today we are going to be discussing advancing your career in commercial real estate with an MBA from application to graduation. Things we're going to cover is the questions, is an MBA right for everyone? How to best present a competitive application to top MBA programs? How to get the most from your time in school? And what awaits you in the job market upon graduation. And so, with that, I'd like to kick it over to Jim. And really the first topic we're going to cover here is, is an MBA or graduate degree right for everyone looking to get into or advance their career in CRE? So Jim, if you would like to kick this off.
Sure. Yeah, and I appreciate the question, Michael. And just as a maybe quick background, it might be helpful for those listening to the conversation just to have a little bit of a perspective on what we do here and how we do it. And that'll obviously color, my commentary, So I essentially sit in the center that works with both undergraduate and MBA students that are pursuing real estate careers, and obviously using UNC Keenan Flagler Business School to do so. So I, in any given year, probably talk to about 150 to 170 prospective students that are thinking about coming here to get a graduate degree, and at the same time, I'm constantly talking with our undergraduates about the classes they should take, the types of companies they might want to work for after school, and then we have an entire alumni community of several thousand that we interact with on a regular basis, all of whom are, generally thinking about their next job, because we all know the first job out of school is not going to be the last job you ever have. Those days are kind of over.
Right.
So, what's happening, and I'm going to say this, even though I promote graduate degrees on a daily and sometimes hourly basis, they're not right for everybody. It really is dependent on your career history, your trajectory to date, and where you want to end up in the industry. And let me, if you will allow me to, let me spend a little bit of time on that. The MBA credential, is generally the most valued, at least in my experience here, by the development and the investment communities. And that's because, to be a developer, there's certainly a lot of technical knowledge that's involved in the job, the market analysis and the capital markets, financing elements of it, the planning, the construction elements of it. But by and large, the position is a people and project management type of exercise.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you're working with people that aren't necessarily under your direct control, right? These are maybe architects. These might be civil engineers, so you're definitely paying them to do the work, but trying to get them to do the type of work you want them to do on the timeline that you need to be done can be particularly daunting. And so, what we teach in an MBA program isn't just that process and what happens during the process, but also how to manage people and get them to do things when you want them to do it, how you want them to do it, even if you don't have direct control of their pocketbooks, and manage processes in the like way. So I think for those of your audience that want to be developers, I really think an MBA credential, and that could be a part-time MBA, a full-time MBA like we offer here, executive MBA programs. There's a lot of different ways you can get that kind of MBA training. I think that's really helpful within the development process. And I know, I mean, you are a developer, right? I mean, you guys know this. You kind of have seen it in your career, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even to add to that, really just the general management of so many desperate, areas of expertise that you're not necessarily going to be an expert in, but you need to manage the process and kind of learn enough to be dangerous, but figuring out how to do that and manage all these other experts and how to push that process along, which is really a skill that, like you said, you pick up in an MBA program. You can learn.
We always say that the developer's kind of like to use a football analogy, the quarterback. So he or she may not always have the ball, but they know where the ball should be going, and they generally understand what kind of play is being run, and if it breaks down, what needs to happen in order to get it back on track.
Right.
And I think those are just skills that we teach, within an MBA program. And likewise, I think on the investment side, there's some of that. I don't think it's on the investment side, but certainly as you move up within organizations and it's much more managing, deal flow and managing people and putting them in the right place at the right time, some of the soft skills that you pick up in an MBA program can be helpful. There are other ways to get the technical skills outside of MBA programs. There are a lot of very good Masters in Real Estate programs or Masters of Science in Real Estate programs or Masters of Science in Real Estate Development programs out there. And oftentimes they can be much more cost effective than an MBA program. I mean, a top MBA program these days is going to run you anywhere between $50,000 and $70,000 a year. And that's just for its tuition, right?
Right.
Assuming you don't get that discount, which maybe we can talk about at some point. But, that's a big chunk of change plus the 2 years of foregone income. So you really have to think about, how does those MBA skill sets, in addition to the technical type of, those MBA skill sets, in addition to the technical type of, education you'll get, how does the MBA skill set advance you, whether it's on the development side, the investment side, wherever you're going in real estate, it tends to be more valued if you're in a larger organization that has more complexity associated with the people and processes associated with that organization.
Yeah, no, that's
if that makes sense.
That's a great point, Jim. Let me ask you in reverse then. Where do you see graduate education being maybe less valuable, and what types of roles or types of organizations maybe don't value the MBA in the same way that the larger institutions hiring development and investment professionals do? Yeah,
I mean, that's another great question. I really see that most acutely within the investment sales community or the brokerage community. I mean, those types of roles, they certainly require real estate skills and real estate education, but they're I think the long-term success of individuals within that career path really depends on developing relationships and maintaining relationships. And real estate, by and large, is a relationship business, and the investment sales folks are right at the heart of it. Right, they're making deals happen. And I've seen, some of our MBA students go in there over the years. I've seen a lot of our undergraduate students go in there over the years. Those undergraduate students never had to get an MBA. I mean, maybe they would argue they had an on-the-job MBA, in the investment sales land. But the pay there's no pay differential for an MBA and an undergrad at Carolina. They want people who are smart, who work hard, but that can manage relationships. And I don't know that you need that, right? Yeah. So I definitely think the investment sales space is very fertile for that. The lending space is interesting, some of the larger lenders like an MBA, but a lot of students that come out of strong undergraduate real estate programs have gone on to work for the largest banks of the world and never really had to go back and get an MBA. And they've been great producers all their lives. They are good relationship builders, kind of like in the investment sales world. And the bank, unless they're going to go and serve in some kind of executive capacity in the bank, the bank doesn't really need them to get that MBA. So I think those are two big roles. I would also say, the MBA is not right. If you come out of a real estate background, if you're a developer and you want to go be an investor, you have to think long and hard on whether you need the MBA. Sometimes it makes sense. And again, it depends on what kind of organization you want to go to work for. The big PGIMs of the world, maybe you get the MBA. But if you're, local and, a local developer and you want to become a local investor, you don't need the MBA to make that transition. So it really kind of depends on what type of organization you want to work for longer term, not just the sector you want to work in, if that makes sense.
No, that's a really good point. So let me present a common profile that Michael and I will run across, right? So every week we're receiving emails, we're talking to our audience, and a common theme that we see from younger professionals is they say, hey, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, I want to start my own shop, right? Maybe it's a development shop, maybe it's an investment shop, whatever, right? Real estate's an entrepreneurial business. Many of these individuals come from real estate families. In those situations where they have maybe 10 years worth of career salaried runway, and then they're moving into their own thing, is a graduate degree right for them?
Yeah. I like the graduate degree in those situations, and here's why. Because most of the top business schools in the country have a fairly rigorous entrepreneurship curriculum that I think serves those individuals well if and when the time becomes right for them to hang their own shingle out. And so I encourage our students, all of our students, particularly on the development side, where you tend to get students that kind of spin out of a larger shop and do their own thing, to take our entrepreneurship classes. Those will teach you how to think about, creating a venture, right? How to fund it, but also more so about how to market it. And some of the longer term challenges associated with growing a business, not just the initial conception. And folks tend to think you go into an MBA program to be, and you do the entrepreneurship track to go into the tech space. And we do have, like any other school, a lot of our students are development by itself is an entrepreneurial exercise. So getting the opportunity to learn within a laboratory like we have here at Keaton Flagler or other schools that you might go to, a very kind of controlled laboratory and test out some of these ideas, even if you put them in your pocket for the next 10 years, I think is a very good thing. And I'll just add, you mentioned about family businesses. Another interesting part of Keaton Flagler and other schools have it is that we actually have a family business center, and a lot of our students will take classes there as well. So that they can understand the very unique dynamics that are associated with family enterprises. And, how do you navigate those, whether you're a family member or you're not, or you're a non-family member, which a lot of real estate businesses are, at their core, family businesses.
Right.
So I think, I guess that's another argument for the MBA is the multitude of different disciplines that you get exposed to, relative to if you took a narrower, master's, if you took a much narrower, master's real estate program, or if you had no graduate education at all.
Great.
But that's, but I think planning ahead 10, 15 years, is a very good thing for individuals to be, concerned about. My only caution to them when I have those kinds of conversations leading into their MBAs, think about what the world looked like 15 years ago today. Think about 2004 and what the real estate landscape, looked like. It's a very different world today. So it's always good to plan, but a lot of times you just kind of have to react too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let me actually just add one piece to that. So one element of the graduate education is the curriculum. It's an incredibly important element to it. But as Jim mentioned, the world changes, and what you learn today may not be as applicable 15 years from now. What doesn't change is the network, right? And when you get into a top program like UNC, you now have a network that you're plugged into that you can lean on for the balance of your career. And so whether you stay as a salaried professional or you go out on your own, you leverage that network on a daily basis, or at least that's my case.
And I would add to that's the same piece of advice that I think we give, and Jim, maybe you can add to this a bit. We give to career switchers. A lot of people who reach out to us are saying, hey, we're in a debt shop, we're looking to get into development, or vice versa, they're looking to change, and that going back to graduate school, MBA in particular, there's, a lot of networking opportunities to get that foothold in and give you the time and space that you need to actually prep up for the next role. So,
no, that's exactly right. And, another important component within real estate is geography, right? And unlike some other career tracks that folks might go into, where there's kind of a national coverage, and if you go work in the Pepper Snapple or something like that. I mean, you're dealing probably with a national type of footprint, and even the largest development firms, the Heinzes of the world, right? I mean, they're very localized. They're very specialized in how they operate, and so having networks in particular geographies is really important. And that's one of the things that I often talk about with prospective students. Maybe they're in New York and they're looking to make a shift to, for us, it's very common for them to shift down to the South or to DC, or maybe they're looking to go out to the West Coast, to San Francisco or Los Angeles or down to Dallas. Understanding the network that each school has in that, vicinity, and how those networks can help that prospective student achieve their career goals is really important. And because real estate is local, you really have to figure out which network is going to be the right one for you. And then, to that point, I think which network is going to be the right one for you. And then, to that point, I think one of the great things about going through a graduate program like ours is you really have that network for the balance of your lifetime. I mean, you're basically buying the network, as part of that tuition cost. And, if you are diligent in reaching out as a student, and, one of the great things when you're a student is you're safe, right? Like, everybody will talk to you. Everybody remembers when they were a student, whether they're undergrad or, grad, and they remember, the great conversations they had. They want to pay it forward. So you can talk to a ton of people. And if you maintain those relationships help you get a job. Those relationships help you find capital partners. Those relationships help you find joint venture partners. I mean, those are good for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, which is fantastic because, as I said earlier, the odds that you go out and you take a job with a company and you stay in that job for the next 20 years are no longer around. I was looking the other day, and for our class of 2012 MBA class, I think we put 27 students into real estate that year. We've got a big MBA real estate class here in Carolina, 27 students, and I think 2 of them are still with the same employer they came out with.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's 7 years away, and I bet if I looked into in 2015, I bet there'd be half of them have already left their employer from that. So the velocity of change is just extraordinary. So having that network you can utilize to, help you make those transitions is extraordinarily important.
Yeah.
And as back to your question too, as a career switcher, I mean, if you have had no exposure to real estate, and let's say you're a consultant or you're a teacher or whatever, I mean, those networks are absolutely foundational, because you learn a lot in the classroom, whether it's here or anyplace else. But you really learn the majority of things by talking to people. And a lot of that is by talking to alumni of whatever program you're going through. So, the faster that you can be ready for those conversations, take advantage of those conversations, the better odds you're going to be to make you'll have to make a successful transition through that program.
Yeah. And that's actually a great segue to our next topic, which is, and something on the minds of a lot of, I'm sure, your students and those of us in the industry. What does the job market look like in the coming years? I'm sure you have the pulse on that, given that in your position, you're talking to the large real estate employers out there. Are you seeing a pullback in hiring? Is it as robust as ever? What positions are you seeing more popular than others? Talk through kind of the job market today and what you see the job market looking like in the next few years.
Well, first of all, I don't have a crystal ball, and I've been telling students for the past week. We put a lot of students into development out of Carolina. It's part of our lineage here. We've been teaching development since the early 1970s. So about 40% of our students go into development any given year out of the MBA program. And I've been telling all of those development-oriented students for the past 3 years that they better have a plan B, because the odds that they come out of our program and find a job could be relatively slim. And I've been wrong every single one of those years. So you may want to ask this question of another guest in the series. But that being said, it's a great job market for MBAs. That's the best way I can describe it. I've been in this role. So I came to Carolina in 2011 after failing as a shopping center developer in Central Florida. And so I say that kind of tongue in cheek. I was all right, but then the recession wiped me out. It was bad.
That's a rough time. Yeah.
That's right. So I've been here since 2011. I've been working with students since 2011, putting them into the real estate market. And I can tell you, we've had record base salaries for our students. Every single one of our students this year had a job offer within 90 days after graduation. 80% of them had job offers at graduation, which for real estate, these are pretty good statistics. I mean, we've definitely been at a high watermark over the last couple of years. And both on the development side, the investment side, which is where the majority of our students tend to go, it's been a great time to come out. I will tell you the hottest part of the market right now are folks that came out of an undergraduate program 2 or 3 years ago, so have several years of experience. I mean, they basically can name their terms. There's probably 6 or 7 jobs for every single one of them that are actually eligible right now. And you can see that if you go on your board, on the website, you can see all those jobs sitting out there. I mean, it's just insane. So I wish I had graduated from our undergraduate program a couple of years ago. It would have been, I'd be living the high life a couple of years ago. It would have been, I'd be living the high life right now. So I think it's been good. I'll tell you that our employers say to us, look, we know it's a good market. There's a ton of capital chasing real estate these days. There's a lot of deals to be done, but we're cautious, right? We don't know when this party's going to end. And so, they'll hire MBAs, but they'll hire, for every MBA they'll hire 2 undergrads. The reason being because undergrads are seen as more expendable, I guess is the word for it. If a downturn comes, that those folks can go back to school. They don't necessarily have families. They're much more mobile versus an MBA tends to be stickier with an organization. I use MBA. You could use any kind of graduate student. They're a little bit older. They probably have family. They may have family already. They really want to settle down to a particular geography. And so, we see good, strong MBA hiring, but I think that'll be the first part of the market to kind of, really get turned off. If the angst within the bond market, we don't see, there's none of our employers have come to us and said, we're really concerned. All of our employers are still saying supply and demand are in check. There's a ton of capital out there supporting the asset class. We feel good about it. And we put, I think 30% of our class into development last year, and we'll put another probably 30 to 40% in development this year. And that's usually the part of the market that goes away the first. MBA developers are probably the most at risk of a downturn. I will tell you that I just spent an hour and 15 minutes with our MBAs, first year MBAs, coaching them over the lunch break today. And I told them they should look at asset management. I think it's an underappreciated role for graduate students is asset management. And the reason I say that is because I think it's a place you can go in a storm. I mean, there's always has to be an asset manager. There doesn't always have to be in a storm. I mean, there's always has to be an asset manager. There doesn't always have to be a developer. There doesn't always have to be an acquisitions officer, but somebody always has to take care of the property. Yeah. And you can go to asset management. You can sit there. The skill sets are very transferable into the development or the investments range. You have to know how the asset operates. You have to understand how to maximize the NOI or the cash flow from the asset, right? There's 2 ways to do that. Increase NOI, decrease expenses. And the asset managers get that. They know capital structure. They understand how to finance stuff. So I think it's a great spot and probably an underappreciated spot for grad students to land. And, over the next couple of years, it could be the place to be, depending on what happens in the economy.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. In my conversations with younger professionals, they all want to be in development or acquisitions, right? That's right. Those are the sexy jobs. That's right. But as soon as the market turns, the first thing it turns off is development, and the second thing it turns off is acquisitions. But you always need the asset managers, right? These large institutions, they continue to own real estate. You need the asset managers, you need the portfolio managers, and like you said, the tasks that an asset manager performs are largely the same, at least as an acquisitions professional. You're underwriting real estate. That's right. Now, it's different because it's an owned property rather than a prospective property. But at the end of the day, the underwriting, which is what these analysts and associates are doing, the modeling is largely the same. And so, as you said, these skills are transferable. Great place to be during a recession. And then you pivot out of that into a more transactional role when the time's right.
And it's a great position, to transition out of. I mean, you're executing the business plan and you understand that. And if you're in that for, a multitude of years and you go out and you're looking at acquisitions, you can walk into places and see things, much faster than somebody who's exclusively been on the acquisition side. So
well, they like asset management, right? It wasn't a sexy position that everyone talks about, but this is actually a pretty good job. And by the way, every year we track CEL and associates compensation survey. Asset managers on whole make more than the other positions, probably because there's less demand for the position. It's a supply and demand issue, but
that's right.
I think it's a pretty good position. It's a
great. It is cat. So I will say. So we were just talking about the CEL data in this session, and so you're right. At the kind of junior levels, mid levels, it's about even with what you could expect in investments professional or development professional make. At the upper echelons, it does seem to cap out a bit. At the senior executive levels, it's probably a 15 to 20% overall comp discount to what you can make, particularly as a developer. But on a risk-adjusted basis, it's a great lifestyle, right? And you're going to be there in the storm. And at the end of the day, they're the ones that actually have to produce the cash flow. The acquisitions folks do all that upfront underwriting, but they're guessing at a lot of it. It's the asset management folks that actually have to produce it. So I think it's extraordinarily valuable. And it's interesting. I was talking to a student that we have. She came in with asset management experience. She wants to go on the acquisition side. And she asked me, do I need to go do banking? So a lot of students historically have come into an MBA program and decided to be investment bankers, gone to real estate investment banking in order to access a real estate private equity career. And my argument to her was, you don't need the banking. You have that asset management skill set. And like you were just talking about, it's transferable, right? Yep. You don't need the transactional history with the bank in order to go in there and say, I can add value to your organization immediately. So I think, asset management, both for folks that are younger in their career as well as folks thinking about coming out of graduate programs, really a good spot to learn. And you learn a ton, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of being there and interacting with the property manager and interacting with the property managers. And you figure out how the leasing agents work, and you're dealing with the lenders a lot of the time. You're dealing with the disposition group. So you see kind of across the entire real estate spectrum.
Yep.
And of course, you're taking in the stuff from the acquisitions folks and telling them how they're wrong. So that's even better.
Yeah, that's the best.
I know you said rents were here, but your rents are actually here.
Great. All right. Yeah. So, go ahead. Sorry. I don't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, I just think, it's something that people ought to be, it's not one of those things, especially for grad students, that kind of pops up. They all want to be investors. They all want to be developers. But I think it's a really solid role, and it gives you optionality. And it doesn't, it's not the option. You get a lot of optionality out of banking as well, but you don't have to work the 100 hours a week that banking requires.
Right.
In the asset management space. It's a little different lifestyle.
Join us on the next episode for the second half of our interview with Jim Spaeth. We'll deep dive what top programs.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Adventures in CRE audio series. For show notes and additional resources, head over to www.adventuresincre.com/audio series. Would you like to learn real estate financial modeling in a matter of weeks and do it with zero guesswork? If so, the A.CRE Accelerator is for you. The Accelerator is a step-by-step, case-based program designed to teach you exactly what you need to know and in the order you need to know it, so you can gain both the knowledge and experience to take your career to the next level. To see if the Accelerator is right for you, go to www.adventuresincre.com/accelerator.